Hello, everyone. I'm Chuang. We are going to draw the flying posture of Microraptor today. There are several different theories about the flying posture of Microraptor. We'll choose to draw a very classic biplane-like posture today. The so-called biplane configuration is that, when humans first invented the aircraft, to improve the flying power, two layers of wings were created. So did Microraptor. A theory is that, when viewed from the front, the feathers of its two hindlimbs could stretch out like this, forming two layers of wings above and below. Choosing a suitable angle that could well present this flying posture will be the key point of this drawing. It's difficult, because if we look at it from the sides of the lower wings and the upper wings might be just two straight lines, making it difficult to show what the wings looked like. If drawing it in a front view, it would become an I shape or H shape, and the wings were flat, making it difficult to show its posture. We choose to look from the bottom up. From this angle, we can see two squares formed by the two wings. This is hard to present, so when drawing, we should compose such an outline at the beginning, so as to make it as precise as possible. Now, we start to draw the flying posture of Microraptor. Let's compose the picture first. To better show it, we draw it with a slightly frontal angle. First, determine the position of its head. Suppose its body was slanted backward like this, its rump would be about here, and its tail would curve like this and stop here. Then we draw the roots of its two wings here. The wingspan is about this size and their stretching directions. And then its hind legs, we put them here. The lower wings would occupy this area. Good. Let's start drawing it now. We want to outline it all at once, so we need to draw the parts that were not blocked first. The wing was completely visible. When drawing it, we must know that the root of its arm was here, the upper arm here, the forearm here, and then the hand. Draw a curved line connecting the shoulder and the wrist. Its hand had 3 fingers, and we can see the first 2. We draw the end claw of the first finger and the second finger. These parts were exposed. There were many feathers on the palm. Then, draw a tiny tip on the third claw. Next, we draw the longest feather on this wing. The first feather grew from its second finger. The first feather was relatively short, and the second became much longer. There were a total of 12 feathers here. Followed by 13 more feathers in this area. Okay, we've finished the wing of this forelimb. Then we draw its belly, which was probably here. We move on to draw this leg. First, we start with the knee. The thigh is here, then the shank. Here is its knee. And this foot would stretch forward like this. Next, we draw the wing on the second layer. As for the overall shape of the lower wing, the feathers on this foot were one longer than the other, and then retracted, one shorter than the other, forming a tip here. Its overall shape was a triangle. The feathers covered all the way to the part above the shank, and there were no feathers at the base of the thighs, that is, these feathers stopped at the knee. Then, we draw the other leg. This leg stretched forward, and the feathers became longer and longer. This one was the longest and then got shorter. This is the overall shape of the wings on its hind limbs. Next, we draw its head. Its back extended from here, forming a streamlined shape with its head. These feathers covered all the way to the front of its eyes. We draw one eye here. Then its mouth. This was the boundary line between the feathers and skin. We continue to draw its facial features. First, we draw the seam of the mouth. It had a lot of fine teeth, and we used some dots to show its teeth, followed by a nostril and the corner of its mouth. Next, we move to draw the claws of the two hind feet. To begin with the first toe on its right foot, the first toe, then the second, and the third, which were 3 functional toes. Then, there was another one, equivalent to our big toe. It had 4 toes. A small one is located here. The other side was the same. For the other side, we start with the second large claw, then the other 2. Its first toe was blocked. Let's draw the other arm. We should determine the position of its bones. The shoulder should be here, the elbow, the wrist, the upper arm, the forearm, and then the hand. We draw its thumb first, then the index finger, the third finger, and then we draw some fine hair covering the hand. There was a layer of membrane, linked its wrist and its torso. Next, we start drawing from the second finger. The first of its feathers was short, the second longer, and the third the longest. Extending all the way here. Next, we draw its tail. Since there was no feather on the dorsal side of its tail, we draw the dorsal side first, a very simple S-curve. The tail feathers started halfway down its tail. And spread out to the lateral sides horizontally. Looking at its tail from an angle further down, we can see the bottom of the tail feathers on the other side. Then we draw the lower part of its tail. Finally, it had 2 longer feathers at the end of its tail, which we draw like this. Then, let's add some details. There were several layers of down feathers on the inside of the arm. The first layer would outline the shape of its arm. We only need to draw 3 layers. The second and third layers were like the structures of the covered feathers on the dorsal side. In fact, like many birds, they might be made up of down feathers. Draw a layer of down feathers on the leg feathers, and its covered feathers on the dorsal side of the leg. Then we draw the rachises. When drawing them, we should pay attention to the direction. Viewed from the dorsal side, the inner feathers were on top of the outer ones. So viewed from the inside, the outer feathers would be on top of the inner ones. When drawing, we must pay attention to the direction. All the lines should be curved inward. And this was the inner side. The outer feathers partly covered at the inner feathers. While this was the reverse, the inner feathers partly covered the outer feathers. Next, we add some details, such as its rachises. These tail feathers were at the near end. So the ones near the root would overlap the ones near the tip. And the inside ones were reversed. We draw some feathers on the body to give it more sense of volume. Areas that tended to bend like the neck had layers and rings of feathers like this. In the parts that could form shadows under sunlight, we draw some dots to show the feathers and make it look more three-dimensional. Draw some fine hairs on the inner side of the thigh. Finally, in these corners, draw some shadings to make it look more layered. Good, like this, we've finished drawing the flying posture of Microraptor.